Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After being reborn, I immediately sought out the man I was rumored to be involved with in my past life, and rushed to register our marriage. All because in my previous life, my fiancé had gone out and ended up in a fatal accident. My future mother-in-law and future sister-in-law claimed I had cursed him to death, and insisted I spend my entire life repaying the debt. I was overwhelmed with grief and allowed the two of them to manipulate me into becoming their maid, wasting my whole life serving them. But just as I was gravely ill and dying, my supposedly dead fiancé returned home with a wife he had married elsewhere and 3 sons. He laughed at everything I had done for him, called me foolish, and mocked me to my face. It was only then that I realized he had never died at all. He had faked his own death to avoid military service and, more importantly, to avoid marrying me. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back to 6 months after his death. This time, not only would I marry someone else, I would make his entire family pay for what they did. "What, you trying to scald me to death by giving me porridge this hot?" I snapped. "You cursed star. You killed my son and now you're trying to kill me too." Martha Dawson, my former future mother-in-law, screamed at me, pointing her finger as she raged. Out of habit formed over many years, I almost instinctively dropped to my knees to apologize. But then, catching a glimpse of my reflection in the mirror nearby, the young version of myself, I froze. I had been reborn. In my past life, I got engaged to Henry Dawson. The day after our engagement, he received news that he was being drafted. But once he left, he never came back. It wasn't until the next year that we were told he had fallen off a cliff and died in an accident while stationed out of town. I had loved Henry deeply. When I heard the news, I was devastated. I made a silent vow to take good care of Martha and Henry's teenage sister, Sophie Dawson. At first, both of them seemed grateful for my help. But when they heard someone was trying to set me up on a date, they completely lost it. They started beating and scolding me, forcing me to swear I would never marry in my lifetime. Confused and manipulated by their constant abuse, I truly believed that Henry's death had been caused by my so-called cursed fate. I swore a vicious oath never to marry, and moved into the Dawson home to serve Martha and Sophie. For the next 20+ years, they abused me constantly, physically and verbally. I couldn't eat well, couldn't sleep well, and my health deteriorated at a young age. But I never regretted it. I believed that when I died, I could meet Henry in the afterlife with a clear conscience. But just as I was about to breathe my last, Henry, who was supposed to be dead, walked through the door with a beautiful wife and 3 sons. I was stunned, confused, and overwhelmed with countless thoughts. Henry was momentarily taken aback when he saw me, then turned to Martha and Sophie and asked in disbelief, "Didn't you say she was dead? Why is she still breathing?" Sophie smiled sweetly and replied, "Brother, she's been stupidly taking care of us all these years. I just wanted her to know the truth. Isn't it more fun this way?" Henry's wife chuckled and added, "Exactly. This is what it means to truly destroy someone emotionally. That's what makes it entertaining." I died of rage. Everyone else in the room was laughing uncontrollably. Still caught up in my memories, I didn't notice that Martha's voice was growing louder with each sentence. Though short and frail, when she yelled at someone, her voice could be thunderous. It didn't take long for the neighbors to gather and watch the commotion. They chatted and gossiped nonstop. I didn't even bother arguing with her. Instead, I snatched the bowl of white porridge from her hands. I had wanted to throw it in her face, but then remembered she had added sugar to it. Sugar was expensive. It would be a waste to throw it away. So I downed it all in one go. "If I want to drink it, I'll drink it." "Stop spreading your superstitious nonsense," I said coldly. "This isn't the old days. Don't talk to me about cursed fate or any of that crap. I hadn't even married your son. He died before that. If he really died because of me, then his so-called destiny was way too weak. And if you keep spreading this nonsense, I'll report you." That was the first time I had ever talked back. Martha froze on the spot, momentarily forgetting to cry. Seeing that her mother had been silenced, Sophie quickly pointed at me and shouted, "My mom is your future mother-in-law. Even if my brother's death had nothing to do with you, you should still mourn him. You're supposed to take care of us." That's your duty. Backed up by Sophie, Martha quickly snapped out of it. She threw herself to the ground and began flailing and screaming hysterically. Sophie burst into tears and cried, "Sister-in-law, how could you do this to my brother? He worked so hard to earn achievements just so you could be proud. Why else would he push himself so hard? Why else would he die? It's only been half a year since his death, and this is how you treat me and my mom? How could my brother ever rest in peace like this? My brother loved you so much. He treated you so well, and this is how you treat his family," Sophie accused tearfully. I let out a cold laugh. "Since you know your brother loved me, why didn't you or your mother think about taking care of me? Why was I the one slaving away as your maid when you were bullying me? Did you ever stop to think about how your brother would feel seeing me suffer like that? You really think he could rest in peace?" Martha's crying stopped abruptly around us. The neighbors burst into laughter. Sophie opened her mouth, but before she could speak, I continued, "And you said your brother went off to make a name for himself for my sake. Funny, because I clearly remember him saying he wanted to join the military to become a real man." Sophie couldn't come up with a proper rebuttal. All she could do was say in a mocking tone, "Aren't you just picking a fight with us now because you want to get married?" If I were still that 20-year-old girl from my past life, I probably would have blushed with shame at that comment. But I wasn't her anymore. Of course, I wanted to get married. More than anyone, I longed to have a family, a husband who loved me, and children who were kind and thoughtful. Why wouldn't I want that? Why shouldn't I want that? I didn't say any of that out loud, though. Instead, I scoffed and turned to Martha. "If I remember correctly, you were widowed and remarried within 6 months, right? Your first husband died, and you married into the Dawson family not even half a year later. So, you could skip mourning your husband, but I lose a fiancé, support you for half a year, and that's still not enough? What do you want me to spend my whole life serving you too? Be your mule forever?" The neighbors naturally took my side. They said I'd already done more than enough, that I'd fulfilled my duty, and told Martha and Sophie not to ruin my life. No matter how sharp Martha's tongue was, she couldn't talk over an entire crowd. Furious and humiliated, she barked, "You all listen here. That woman is cursed. Whoever marries her will die. Let's see who's desperate enough to risk their life and take her in." Sophie didn't go that far. She knew how much I had loved Henry. She thought I was just acting out of anger, so she gave a cold snort and said, "Sister-in-law, think carefully. Would you rather live out your days alone with no one or with me and my mom? Figure it out yourself. I'm done talking." I rolled my eyes at them both, slammed the bowl down on the table, and walked out of the Dawson house without looking back. In the days that followed, I stayed home and didn't return to their place, not even once. I didn't go out much either. I just stayed in quietly making plans. Meanwhile, Martha and Sophie weren't idle. They spread nasty rumors about me everywhere, saying I was cursed, that I'd brought death to my parents and to Henry, that I was bad luck and doomed any man who married me. Matchmakers from all the surrounding villages shook their heads, declaring they'd never help arrange a marriage for me. Everyone said I'd never find a husband, that I'd inevitably go crawling back to live with Martha and Sophie. Hearing all this, I didn't get angry. Instead, I went straight to see Jonah Denton, the director of the textile mill. In my past life, Jonah had known I only had eyes for Henry. He respected that and quietly wished me well. It wasn't until after Henry died that Jonah began pursuing me. Back then, I was still obsessed with Henry. It took me years to warm up to Jonah. I had finally made up my mind to accept his love and build a life with him. But Martha threatened suicide and Sophie cried and mocked me, accusing me of being too desperate for a man. They even stormed into Jonah's workplace, making a huge scene. I was emotionally drained. Not wanting to drag Jonah down with me, I cut ties with him and gave up on marriage altogether. Jonah was heartbroken when I rejected him, but he still respected my decision. He spent his entire life quietly watching over me and never married anyone else. Remembering that now made me want to slap myself. How could I have been so stupid? I had so many things I wanted to say to Jonah, but when I finally saw him, my throat closed up. My nose stung with the urge to cry. After struggling for a long time, I could only blurt out, "Would you dare to marry me?" Jonah froze on the spot, but he didn't hesitate for long. He nodded right away. We laid everything out honestly between us, and without telling a soul. We went and registered our marriage that very day. I slowly began preparing for the wedding. I bought good quality fabric and started sewing outfits for both Jonah and myself by hand. But before long, Sophie showed up, clearly upset I hadn't come to apologize. When I heard she was here, I had to take a deep breath to stop myself from laughing out loud. Then I opened the door. Sophie was already crying. "Sister-in-law, how could you be so heartless? Ever since that fight, you've never come back. My mom and I missed you so much," Sophie said, tears welling up. I found it laughable. There was no way Martha ever missed me. But then again, I figured maybe they did miss me. Without me doing their laundry, cooking meals, making the beds, folding blankets, and cleaning the house, they probably couldn't function. Of course they'd miss me. I tried to make myself look a little remorseful, then sighed. I was too impulsive that day. Do me a favor and apologize to your mom for me. I won't be going back after everything that's happened. There's no point. Let's just live our own lives from now on. It'll save us all the awkwardness. The moment I said that, Sophie let out a breath of relief. Come on. If you're going to apologize, you need to do it yourself. I know how much you loved my brother. You loved everything about him. So obviously you loved me and my mom too. If you just leave now and never look back, how could you possibly live with yourself? How could you face my brother when you meet him again someday? The more Sophie talked, the more guilt she tried to pile on. And seeing the look on my face, she clearly thought she was winning. In my past life, these tactics worked flawlessly on me. So her expression turned even more pitiful, her voice softer and more pleading. Sister-in-law, please just come see my mom. Even without my brother, you always treated her like your own mother. If you see what she's like now, you'll definitely feel sorry for her. Hearing that, I gave her a look of emotional struggle and said nothing else. I followed her back to the Dawson house. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw the whole place was a complete mess. Several basins of dirty laundry were piled up. The courtyard was full of fallen leaves and dust. The table was still covered with dirty dishes from who knows when, and even the stove was grimy. The only clean spot was the firewood pile, because the firewood I had prepared for them had already been used up. Martha looked about the same as before, but with a deeper scowl. "Oh, so you do know how to come back, huh? Do you have any idea how we've managed this whole month without you? Now get to it. Clean the house, wash the clothes, cook the meals." Sophie tugged at my sleeve. "Sister-in-law, my mom's all bark and no bite. Just get to work, apologize a little, and she'll forgive you. Then we can go back to being one big, happy family." I took a deep breath, let it out slowly, and projected my voice from the pit of my stomach. "So, you missed me and wanted me to come see you. Sounds more like you just needed a maid. You said you treated me like your own daughter. Who lets their daughter come home to a dump like this? And you still have the nerve to talk about me. If Henry said I cursed him to death, then with a mother and sister like you two, no wonder he wanted to die. If I had a family like this, I'd be dead from frustration too." I said it loud and clear. The neighbors started peeking in one by one, craning their necks to see the drama unfold. They all knew how messy Martha was and quickly chimed in, backing me up. Martha never expected I'd dare to talk back like that. She flew into a rage, and with her already poor health, the anger overwhelmed her. Her eyes rolled back, and she passed out cold. Sophie was terrified. She didn't even have time to argue with me. She shot me a sharp glare, then carried Martha straight to the clinic. With the crowd slowly dispersing and the house now empty, I didn't leave. Instead, I pulled out the items I had secretly prepared and walked back inside. Because of how many times Martha and Sophie had tried to mess with me after taking so many losses, they still didn't learn. But their tricks had no effect on this version of me. Every time they tried to fight me, they were the ones who ended up humiliated. Eventually, they gave up trying. And finally, the day of my wedding with Jonah Denton arrived. No one had expected someone as obsessed with Henry as I once was to suddenly marry someone else. And even more shocking was that a woman rumored to be cursed would still find someone willing to take her in. The gossip spread like wildfire. I can't believe Donna Yates actually married Jonah Denton. The Dawsons must be fuming. I bet they'll show up to cause trouble. Well, Henry's dead. What do they expect? Is his fiancée supposed to mourn him forever and never remarry? Besides, Donna and Jonah are a perfect match. What right do the Dawsons have to object? If anything, they brought this on themselves. So cruel and heartless. Women really can move on fast, huh? I frowned hearing those whispers. But Jonah held my hand tightly and looked at me with quiet determination. This is our life. We don't need to care what anyone else says. I nodded. After hesitating for a moment, I finally opened my mouth. Wait, there might be an uninvited guest showing up later. I hope you. Before I could finish, Jonah Denton smiled and cut me off. It doesn't matter who comes. You'll still be my wife, and I'll always be on your side. I let out a breath of relief, just about ready to tell him everything. But suddenly, an angry male voice shouted from the entrance. Donna Yates, you're my fiancée. How could you marry someone else? One woman, two husbands. Do you have no shame? The wedding scene instantly fell silent. I turned my head toward the voice. Just as I expected, it was Henry Dawson. He had been away from town for nearly 2 years, and his appearance had changed a lot. He looked strong, confident, and healthy. Since everyone thought he was dead, many people didn't recognize him at first glance. They only whispered in shock that he looked a lot like Henry Dawson. I simply stared at him coldly. I had no intention of saying a word. Clearly, Henry didn't expect this reaction. He knew how deeply I'd loved him. In his mind, I should have run into his arms crying. But after waiting a while with no response from me, he seemed helpless and stepped forward, pointing at Jonah and me. Donna Yates, we've known each other for so many years. We've always been close. You once cried and swore you'd marry no one but me. You said you'd love me for life, honor my mother, and care for my sister. But I've only been dead for less than a year. And look at what you've done. You've beaten and scolded my mom and sister, then turned around and married someone else. You unfaithful, heartless woman. How could I have fallen for you? How did I even get engaged to you? He pointed at me furiously and demanded, tell me in front of everyone, were you already having an affair with Jonah Denton while you were with me? If I hadn't died, would you still have cheated on me? Henry's outburst stirred up the crowd. Friends, relatives, and neighbors who had come to the wedding were all getting worked up. Some looked ready to rush over and demand answers from both Jonah and me. Jonah was startled when he saw Henry, but he quickly stepped in front of me protectively. That small gesture warmed my heart. Just as Jonah was about to speak, I tugged on his sleeve and signaled for him not to. Though confused, he stayed silent. I calmly walked up to Henry, looked him dead in the eye, and said with confusion, who are you? I don't think we've met. When did I ever get engaged to you? Who are your mother and sister? As soon as I said that, the entire room froze. Even Henry was stunned. He must have imagined countless scenarios. Maybe I'd cry. Maybe I'd scream. Maybe I'd demand to know why he wasn't dead, or try to explain myself. But he never expected I'd pretend not to know him at all. It took him a long moment before he finally spoke. Donna Yates, what kind of act is this? Don't tell me you don't know who I am. I'm Henry Dawson, the man you love so desperately. The fiancé you swore you'd never leave. How could you forget me in just 2 years? You're faking it, aren't you? Pretending not to know me just to escape the guilt of betraying me. I gave a cold laugh. You're spouting nonsense. Yes, my fiancé was named Henry Dawson. And looking closely, I'll admit you do resemble him a bit. But my fiancé was a hero. He died saving someone's life. He may not have been a soldier, but he was someone worthy of respect. And now here you are impersonating him and making a scene at my wedding. Aren't you afraid I'll call the police and have you arrested for fraud? The guests began nodding in agreement, praising Henry as a fallen hero, which only highlighted the absurdity of the man standing before them. I turned and told Jonah to call the police. Panicked, Henry snapped. Fine, you can pretend you don't know me, but my mom and my sister, they can prove who I am. Before anyone could call for them, Martha and Sophie had already heard the commotion and rushed over. The moment Henry asked them to confirm his identity, they immediately nodded. That's right. He's Henry Dawson. We can both vouch for it, Sophie said loudly. This is just Donna Yates trying to avoid responsibility and making things up. Everyone here watched our Henry grow up. You all know what he looks like. I nodded. All right then. I believe you. So you are Henry Dawson. Then tell me, why are you here? Henry didn't care about my tone. With a smug expression, he said, I came back to stop this wedding. After all, you're my fiancé. You can't just marry someone else. But the ceremony doesn't need to go to waste, he added, turning to Jonah. Jonah Denton, why don't you take off your tuxedo and give it to me? I'll marry Donna instead. As he walked up to me, he said with a self-satisfied grin, Donna Yates, let me tell you something. You were mine in life, and you'll be mine in death. Don't even think about marrying someone else. We'll get married today and tomorrow. I'm leaving. You'll spend the rest of your life taking care of my mom and my sister. That's your fate. Jonah was furious. If I hadn't been gripping his arm tightly, he probably would have punched Henry on the spot. But while Jonah held himself back for my sake, others didn't. A middle-aged man stood up and said sternly, Henry Dawson, how could you say such a thing? Marriage is supposed to be voluntary. Donna is already married to Jonah. How can you just cancel that on a whim? Henry turned his head and scoffed. And who the hell are you to lecture me? What are you sleeping with, Donna? Just how many guys has she been messing around with? Donna Yates. How cheap can you be? The words had barely left his mouth when a loud smack rang through the room. Henry had just been slapped across the face hard. But it wasn't me, and it wasn't Jonah. It was that middle-aged man who'd spoken up. He couldn't take it anymore. Henry recoiled like he'd been stung, instantly furious and ready to fight back. But before he could even raise his arm, a security guard came charging from behind the man and knocked Henry to the floor. My heart pounded wildly in my chest. My palms were damp with excitement. If I hadn't been digging my nails into my thigh to keep calm, I might have screamed in triumph, because Henry had just walked straight into the trap I'd set for him, a path designed to destroy him. Though restrained, Henry kept running his mouth. Martha and Sophie rushed over in a rage. Are you insane? Martha shrieked. My son's a hero who saved someone's life. You touch him and you're asking to die. When the three of them finally ran out of steam, I spoke up. How can you say that? Don't you recognize him? This is Commander Zhao, a real soldier who's been to the battlefield. Commander Zhao was visibly angry. Henry Dawson, you're alive and well, yet you're called a hero who died saving someone. This is desertion, cowardice, not heroism. Jonah glanced at me thoughtfully. I knew at that moment he understood why I had begged him to ask his father's old comrade, Commander Zhao, to come to the wedding. Henry's face turned pale. He never imagined someone like Commander Zhao would show up at my wedding. He stammered, No, sir. It's not like that. I got injured. Someone rescued me. I spent the whole year recovering. That's why I didn't come home. And when I got back, I saw my fiancé had married someone else. So I got upset. That's all. I didn't mean to avoid military service. You have to believe me. No one did. Not even a fool would believe that. Henry looked strong and healthy. There was no sign of any injury on him. Realizing his lie wasn't landing, he turned to me in desperation. Donna, say something for me. I'm not even mad that you cheated on me. Just help me out here. If you say the word, I'll still marry you, love you, respect you. Please help me. I stared at him. Deep down, I wanted to tear him apart, but I calmly nodded and turned to Commander Zhao. Uncle Zhao, I said, I believe this situation requires serious punishment. If Henry was truly injured and rescued, why didn't he report back to the military? The military would have looked after him properly, I said firmly. Our soldiers are taught never to take a single needle or thread from the people, and Henry Dawson just lived in someone else's home for a whole year. That alone is a clear violation. Henry looked like the sky had fallen on him, but instead of trying to argue with me, he dropped to his knees and began to plead. No, that's not it. I lost my memory. I hit my head and couldn't even remember who I was. After someone saved me, I didn't take advantage of them. I married her to repay her kindness, and we had a child together. We're a family now. I didn't steal anything from anyone. Commander Zhao frowned. It wasn't clear whether he believed Henry or not. Trying to save face, Henry quickly added, If you don't believe me, you can ask my wife. She's the one who rescued me. It was a messy excuse, and even he seemed unsure how to explain it clearly. But I was already prepared for this. I turned to Commander Shao and said, if Henry Dawson really did lose his memory, then sure, it would be understandable. But I don't buy it. What are the odds that he conveniently regains his memory and shows up right as I'm getting married? I believe it was his mother and sister who told him about my wedding, and that's why he came back. So I suggest you search the Dawson house. You might even find their letters. Martha, hearing that, immediately tried to play it cool. Yes. Go check. We have nothing to hide. Go ahead and search the place. Clear my son's name. Commander Shao nodded and ordered his people to investigate. Soon someone returned with a thick stack of letters. At Commander Zhao's gesture, I took the letters and randomly picked one to read aloud. Mom, Sophie, I'm doing great. The story about me dying while saving someone is fake, but now everyone thinks I'm a hero, so your lives are secure. Also, I've gotten married. Burn this after reading. Mom, Sophie, Donna Yates is an idiot. If you scold her enough, she'll feel guilty and treat you better. She'll serve you for the rest of her life. Burn this after reading. Mom, Sophie Wing is pregnant. Everyone says it's a boy. Once the baby's born, we'll go to the photo studio and take pictures for you. Burn this after reading. I was about to read the next one when Henry suddenly screamed, panicked and desperate. Stop. Don't read anymore. It's fake. Those letters are fake. I didn't write them. Martha's eyes bulged like saucers. Without thinking, she slapped Sophie hard across the face. Didn't I tell you to burn them? Why are they still here? Do you want your brother to die? Sophie covered her face, stunned. Mom, you were there every time we burned a letter. How can you blame me? And besides, these aren't even the same ones we saw before. They didn't outright admit to exchanging letters with Henry, but their panicked behavior said enough. Everyone in the room instantly understood. Henry had been writing them all along. Henry, now furious, shouted, What the hell are you two talking about? I never sent you any letters. Don't make stuff up. I didn't write a single word of that. I wasn't fazed at all. It's not hard to find out the truth. Check his body. See if he really has injuries. See if he's really married and has a child. Check the handwriting. Facts will speak for themselves. Commander Shao nodded solemnly and ordered his men to take Henry away for investigation. With no more disruptions, Jonah and I were finally able to complete our wedding. That night, on our wedding night, Jonah sat across from me and asked, Did you know this would happen today? I had no intention of denying it. I simply nodded. Yes, I did. I set it up, but you can't blame me. Henry had it coming. He lied to me. He lied to the country. What he did was unforgivable. Then I hesitated. But do you blame me for ruining our wedding? Jonah shook his head. Of course not. I just feel sorry for you. But I am a little upset that you didn't tell me in advance. If I hadn't reacted quickly today, if I'd lost my temper, things wouldn't have gone as smoothly as they did. At that, Jonah looked a little worried. But those letters were fake, right? I nodded. Yes, they were. But everything else about the situation is true, so there won't be a problem. Jonah didn't say much more. He just let out a long sigh. You've been through so much, he said softly. Then he added that if anything went wrong with the letters, he would take full responsibility. I didn't refuse, but I also didn't tell him the truth that there was no chance anything would go wrong. Yes, the letters were fake, but the story behind them was real. The handwriting was real too. In my past life, when I was living a life worse than death in the Dawson household, I had tried to comfort myself. I took the letters Henry Dawson had written to me in the past and over I imitated his handwriting. I used his tone and style to write new letters to myself. It was those letters that kept me going all those years. I never expected that this silly, desperate habit would one day become the very thing that helped me. Jonah and I enjoyed the bliss of newlywed life. We were genuinely happy. Meanwhile, the Dawson family was in complete turmoil. The investigation had concluded. Henry's handwriting was a match, and it was confirmed that he had faked his death and gotten married. No one knew yet what kind of punishment Henry would face, but rumors were flying that it wouldn't be light. After all, not only was he not a hero who died saving someone, But he had also lied to everyone and taken advantage of national benefits. Because of his fake hero status, the village had been sending the Dawson family a steady supply of rations, flour, meat, everything every single month. Now not only would that support be cut off, but their son was facing serious charges. Martha really did fall ill this time, but sick or not, she still pulled herself together for Henry's sake. She and Sophie came to find me. Gone was their usual arrogance. The moment they stepped through the door, they dropped to their knees. "Donna," Martha begged. "We know we treated you terribly before. It was all our fault. My fault. Henry had nothing to do with it. You loved him so much. Do you really want to see him die? Please, I'm begging you. Spare him. If you let Henry go, I'll make the decision to let you marry into our family. As for that woman, that waning who's pregnant, I'll kick her out. Or better yet, she can be your concubine. She'll serve you and Henry. If even you can't help Henry now, he's really going to die. Have you forgotten how much you used to love him? If you save him this time, he'll be grateful. He'll love you forever." Honestly, seeing the two of them grovel like that was incredibly satisfying. They weren't very bright. They assumed Commander Zhao had shown up because I invited him, and they thought my words had directly gotten Henry arrested. So in their minds, if I said something, Henry would be released. So naive. Even if I did have that kind of power, which I didn't, I still wouldn't have lifted a finger for Henry. But I didn't explain anything to them. I just stood there cold and silent, watching them kneel and beg for mercy. In my past life, I'd been humiliated and tortured by these two for decades. Their apologies today, at best, were just a sliver of interest on the debt they owed me. As they continued to kneel, foreheads nearly splitting from bowing so hard, I finally couldn't hold in my laughter. "You're both so ridiculous," I said. "You really can't see it. Everything that happened, I orchestrated it." Martha froze. "What? What do you mean? That's impossible." I sat down slowly and smiled. "Sophie, don't you remember the last time you came to my house, begging me to visit your mom? Didn't that feel odd to you that I agreed so easily? You said, 'Come.' And I just went. Then I showed up and stirred up a whole scene. So much so that your mom fainted." Sophie looked genuinely confused and shook her head. So I continued, "Let me make it simple. Those letters that got discovered, I'm the one who put them there. Not just the letters, Henry showing up at my wedding out of nowhere, that was me too. I sent him a letter using your names. In the letter, I cried and begged, told him how that Donna Yates was bullying you both, stealing your money, and was about to marry someone else. I wrote that if he didn't come back, the two of you would die. When Henry Dawson received the letter, he didn't think twice. He dropped everything and came running back." As soon as Martha finished listening, she flew into a rage and started cursing at me. But Sophie looked puzzled and asked, "But how could you possibly have known that my brother got married and had a child while he was away? Even my mom and I didn't know about that. And how would you even know where to send the letter or recognize my brother's handwriting?" I raised an eyebrow. Well, I didn't think you were that sharp, Sophie, but I guess it doesn't matter if I tell you now. The truth is I've been reborn." I gave them the full story, sprinkling in some dramatics for effect. I told them everything from my past life, the truth they could never have guessed. When I finished, Martha and Sophie both looked stunned, but slowly began nodding in realization. Once I saw they finally understood, I continued, "But even if you know now, so what? Henry's as good as dead. Unless you two can convince Commander Zhao that I've been reborn. Maybe then he'll believe you and try to save Henry. Though honestly, if you manage that, I might be the one dragged out and shot instead." And with that, I didn't wait to see the joy flash across their faces. I kicked them both out. Fueled by my so-called confession, Martha and Sophie stormed over to the military base in a crazed frenzy. They ranted loudly, trying to plead Henry's case. "You have to help my son," Martha wailed. "That woman is evil. She didn't just curse her own parents to death. She almost cursed my son too. But my son was strong and survived. So now she's using witchcraft to forge those letters and frame him. You've arrested the wrong person." Ironically, every word they said was technically true. They repeated exactly what I had told them, word for word. They weren't even lying, but nobody believed them. At first, people just thought they were grieving Henry's downfall and making a scene. But as time passed, everyone began to think the two of them had lost their minds. To avoid causing any more disruption, the leadership sent someone to gently explain what Henry had actually done and how serious his crimes were. They advised Martha and Sophie to stop making a fuss. They even subtly suggested the two women might have mental issues. The moment they heard that, both women exploded. They started clawing and scratching at the officers, shouting and insisting they were telling the truth. In the end, to prevent them from hurting anyone, they were both sent to a high-security psychiatric hospital. Once the news spread, the entire region knew what happened. People laughed, saying the two of them were truly insane, spouting superstitions, disturbing the peace, and deserving punishment. Some even said they ought to be shot. Rumors spread that the two were still in the psychiatric ward, screaming that they weren't crazy, hitting the doctors, cursing the nurses, and begging to be released. Eventually, after a few injections, they finally calmed down. Even though many people called it superstition, there were still plenty who whispered that I was some kind of sorceress. I held Jonah's hand, wanting to explain everything to him. But the look in his eyes told me he already understood. "You don't have to explain anything to me, Donna," he said softly. "I don't believe any of that nonsense about you being a witch. And as for the whole reborn thing, I don't care whether it's real or not. If it is real, I only regret not being there for you in your past life." With Jonah's unwavering trust, I didn't care what the rest of the world thought. We were happy. Truly happy. 6 months later, Henry Dawson's sentencing was announced. Just as everyone predicted, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, I made a point to visit him. He looked gaunt and hollow. 6 months had taken a toll on him. His eyes were bloodshot, like he had 1,000 questions to ask, but I just gently placed my hand on my slightly rounded belly and smiled. "You're probably wondering why your mother and Waning didn't come today, right?" I said. "Wanqing found out you were arrested and immediately tried to distance herself. She chose to get an abortion, but the baby was already too big. She hemorrhaged and didn't make it. They say it was a fully developed baby boy. As for your mother and sister, they were sent to the psychiatric hospital. I can't say for sure if they were insane when they went in, but they're definitely insane now. If they're not strapped down, they'll eat their own waste." Henry's eyes nearly bled with fury. He screamed at me, demanding to know why I did all this to him. Watching his breakdown, I figured he deserved to know. So I told him the truth. I explained everything about my rebirth. When I finished, he was dragged away. I'll never know if he believed me or not. But as I walked out of the prison and saw Jonah waiting there for me, I realized it didn't matter. I had a husband who loved and cherished me. Soon, I'd have a kind and beautiful child. My life was finally complete.